Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Many in the South and throughout the country have ancestors that fought for the Confederacy during the grossly misnamed Civil War, more properly known as the War for Southern Independence. The U.S. Congress in the 1950s deemed Confederate veterans as U.S. veterans, and former Confederate veterans fought in the Spanish-American War. The sons and grandsons of Confederate veterans fought in World War I and World War II. The tradition continued in every other American war. The men that fought for the Confederacy and their descendants have much to be proud of for their valiant defense against incredible odds and even earned the respect of many of their opponents. They overwhelmingly fought to defend their homes and their state from federal invasion after their states voted to secede from the voluntary union that their fathers and grandfathers created. From the 1890s until recent years, the country was largely reconciled, and the South and her sons and daughters honored their ancestors without incident. But in recent years, not only has the whole South been maligned with the charges of fighting for slavery and white supremacy, and the North portrayed as purely motivated by ending slavery, but now no monument is safe from defacement, and no building safe from being renamed. The Southern Independence Association has a mission to counter that trend. Their website states the following: our primary goal is to protect Confederate memorials and monuments, to end the desecration of Confederate graves, and to oppose discrimination against our people based on their historical identity. Our secondary goal is to foster informed pride in the Confederacy among descendants and the broader American public, grounded in honest historical understanding. Our guest tonight is Mindy Esposito, founder of SIA. She will join us in just a minute to tell us more about the organization and their goals and how you can get involved. But first, a quick word from our sponsor, LifeWave, a unique product that uses light reflection to activate the body's own natural energy, supporting healing, improving performance, and combating aging without drugs or stimulants. Check it out, and we'll be right back.
Light, the energy of life itself. Since the beginning of time, light has sustained us, fueled our growth, and shaped the world. Even Einstein recognized that everything we are is made of light. But what if we could harness the light within us, not just to live, but to renew, restore, and rejuvenate? Introducing LifeWave X39, the first product in the world that activates stem cells using our body's own light. Backed by clinical research, multiple patents, and over 10 years of stem cell research, a revolutionary wearable light technology that unlocks the power of activating our own stem cells with a single, safe, affordable, non-transdermal patch that puts you back in control of how you look, feel, and perform. Unlike drugs or chemicals, X39 works naturally, awakening your body's ability to heal and thrive. It's time to unlock your full potential, restore your vitality, and embrace a healthier, more vibrant you.
Welcome back. Now let's welcome our guest in the studio tonight, Mindy Esposito.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for being here. I appreciate you coming in the studio. Like I said, we don't get a lot of people in the studio, so this is a treat for us. I want to get right to it, so let's talk about SIA. So how did it come about?
Really started right after 2020 with the Antifa, Black Lives Matter movement and the destruction of monuments. And we heard a lot of lies, a lot of people asserting things that weren't true. And I had friends that in Confederate circles, I always laugh and tell people that I was a closet Confederate until 2020, because we just were very committed to the cause, but we just didn't impose our views on anybody else. We just talked amongst ourselves. But once we saw that happen,
right.
And I looked at my husband, and I looked at my grandkids, and I'm like, oh, this can't stand. Yeah. And a group of us, a rather large group of us, we were like, well, what do we do? What can we do? And we just said, well, we have to organize, and we have to get the truth out, and we have to stop this from happening, because once it's gone, we're never getting it back.
Right.
So we did.
Now, the group, was it just a local group initially?
No, it was actually a social media group.
Oh, okay. All across the country.
Yeah, we started out all across the country. We formed in the fall of 2022. Our first meeting was held in Columbia, Tennessee on April 7th, 2023. And there were probably about 30 people in attendance, and we voted in officers. Well, by officers, we're run by a chairman and a board of directors. So we voted them in. We voted on our mission statement and took off running from there.
You know, and you said you couldn't let it stand, you had to get the truth out. And even those people that may not have a pro-Confederate outlook or a pro-Southern outlook, I think some of them realize, wait a minute, they're tearing down these statues. They're going to be tearing down all of our statues pretty soon. So I think some people realize that. Not enough people, but some.
More than you would think. More than and I've had evidence of that recently. I also sat on the Defend Arlington Board of Committee.
Okay.
And when we need people to act, we need people to call Congress or their congressman or what have you with Defend Arlington. So I started sending them out to regular Americans, just pro-Trump supporters or conservative groups. Our reach now is about 3.2 million. And
Wow.
yeah, and we're able to, for example, on the funding bill, that just passed for the military.
The NDAA
Yes.
that impacted Arlington.
Well, it did. There was a poison pill in it. It was called the Strickland Amendment.
Yes, yes.
And it was still in the bill as of December 1st
Right.
of last year. We put out an appeal to all of our people, Confederate, non-Confederates, just all the groups I just mentioned. December 8th, it was struck from the bill.
Good, good.
That's direct. I mean, we don't have the actual numbers of how many people, but we know if only 1% of those 3.1 million people called,
Right.
that was enough to move Congress. So in that work, I said, well, wait a minute. They love Arlington. They love the Reconciliation Monument for the same reason that we do. So let's start going to these people to defend Confederate history. And what we found out is most Americans don't want any history erased.
Right.
Even if they believe the Northern narrative, they still don't think
Right.
it's a good idea to erase what makes us Americans. And that's where we're coming from.
Yeah.
Most of it, well, a lot of us, my family went to Virginia in the early 1600s. They fought in every war from then on. In America, my Confederate ancestors believed in the same thing that my 7 grandfathers who fought for the Continental Army believed in.
Yep.
And they thought they were doing the same thing.
Right.
They thought they were upholding the same values. So I don't think you can understand America if you cut out those more than 4 years, but if you cut out everything that was the Confederate States of America,
Yeah.
you don't get an understanding of where we were, what we went through, and where we are today, and that's fundamental.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many people that just they buy the slavery narrative, they buy the Lincoln is a great hero narrative, and just they just miss it. They just miss it, and they don't understand how that. This is not just fighting a battle that ended or a war that ended a long time ago, and it's not relevant. It is still relevant because we are living under a perverted vision of America, in my opinion.
I think so too.
So you've been around since 2002 or 2022. How many chapters do you already have?
We don't call them chapters. We're active in every southern state and quite a few northern states as well.
Wow.
We have supporters in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Indiana, and California. I didn't realize there were so many descendants of Confederate veterans in California. I knew that Southern California from like the Central Valley South were Confederate, but I didn't realize there's a huge chapter in Sacramento. So
Wow.
Sons of Confederate Veterans.
I didn't know that either. So how do you make sure you just get good people involved? Is there some criteria or that you use?
Well, we do. I don't know what you mean by good people. What are you referring to?
Well, I guess, okay, just what's the criteria that you use as far as screening members?
Well, screening members, if they have Confederate ancestors, if they have ties to what was then the Confederate States of America, or if they're what we call copperheads, if they're Northerners who support us now and supported us, their families supported us.
Right.
we don't really eliminate anybody, and here's why. We're a blanket organization that we call in groups, all different kinds of Confederate and Patriot groups.
Right.
And we go to them to help them in their causes too. We're trying to be not all things to all people, but we're trying to
Work with like groups.
well, for example, if you've got an SCV camp and you've got a UDC chapter and you might have a group of local people that don't have very much voice on their own, but you put them together,
Right.
then they have more of a voice. So we're trying to I don't know if consolidate's the right word. We're trying to bring everybody together so we can stand with one message. Now, Confederates, everybody has different ideas. So a lot of times it's like herding cats.
Right. Right.
But we get there. Somehow we get there.
I understand the whole herding cats thing. I've been involved with some things in Tennessee for a while, and there are a lot of different groups, and yeah, it's herding cats.
Everybody has ideas.
So, what are some of the? So you took on the Defend Arlington. Mm-hmm. Are there other things that you've done since then?
We've worked hand in hand with Defend Arlington, and I just recently was added to their committee. One of our other board members has been on the committee since the beginning, Vinny Badaducci, and I know I've butchered that. But we worked right before they took it down, and then we went to Arlington. I forget the exact date, but it was 2 weeks after they had removed it, and we did a silent memorial at Arlington National Cemetery and a protest out right at the entrance
Right.
of Arlington. Our then director, our chairman of the board, was arrested. That was quite unnerving. It really felt like we were in a foreign country. We had some reenactors with us. They made them take off their uniforms before they could go into the cemetery, and we weren't allowed to carry any flags. We were allowed to place little flags, little stick flags at the graves, and we had one of our members is from Canada, and he was Canadian and fought for the Confederacy, so we got a little Canadian flag and stuck that on his grave too. But
Wow. Yeah, that does sound like third world stuff.
yeah, I very much did. Very much did.
Yeah. Now, we lost a powerful voice for the Confederacy, an unlikely powerful voice from a lot of people's perspective. But H.K. Egerton.
Yeah. His funeral was today.
Was it today?
It was postponed. It was supposed to be Saturday, but because of the snowstorm, they postponed it until, was that
Meet him in person. He lived in Asheville, and my mom lives not far from there, but I just was never able to actually meet him face to face. But you guys have something planned for that, a memorial or a mission, I guess, in his name, you could say?
Well, actually, yes. This isn't new. This is something that the SIA has been working on for quite some time, and we work with Kirk Lyons at the, you know who he is.
Yep. I had him on the show a while. He's great too.
He's a great guy. And he tried this about 20 years ago, and that was to obtain civil rights for Confederates, for descendants of Confederate veterans. He had 4 cases in federal court for discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act National Origin Clause. All 4 of them were thrown out before they were even heard, and one of them he was fined severely for in Virginia. We wanted to try that again. SIA wanted to try that again, and when we found out that that's what Kirk had done, we went to him. We've since, by running a lot of different models and different scenarios, we realized that to do what Kirk did again will get us the same results, because it is a political hot potato.
Right.
Any federal court that admits that we have civil rights has to admit that we existed as a country, which we did.
Right.
And they don't want any part of it for the same reason that they don't want to bring Jefferson Davis to trial.
Right. That's right.
So,
I was reading about that earlier today, and and let's because traitors, as the other side likes it. No, the only person that was hung and actually tried and hung was the commander from Andersonville Wirtz.
Yeah, and that wasn't really for treason.
Right.
That was not, that was, because it wasn't treason.
Right. No, it wasn't.
And Chase said himself that we don't want to take this to court
that's
because
right.
we're not going to win it,
That's
because
right.
constitutionally they didn't have a leg to stand on. Right. But it's still here today, 165 years later, it's still a political hot potato. But we have decided that we can get Congress to act, and we have enough people. There's roughly 50 million descendants of Confederate veterans alive in the United States today.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. You add another, say, 20 million of people that were involved or lived in the Confederate States of America at the time, you're talking about a 70 million person voting bloc. Those are real numbers, and they will make people move. They have to. So our objective, so we decided a few months ago we were going to switch gears from strictly the judiciary and take it directly to Congress in Washington and to state assemblies in all of the states, and not just southern states, every state.
Right.
So we started this progress, and then unfortunately HK passed away, and it was, I want to say it was September, I had dinner with HK and Kirk Lyons in Columbia, South Carolina, and we talked a lot about this, and we talked about about HK's life and what he always stood for. So as soon as he passed away, we were on a drive to Cookeville for an SCB camp meeting we were speaking at. And I looked at my husband and I said, this needs to be HK's movement, because it needs to, and I'm going to try to say this without crying because it gets to me, but this is all about what he stood for, and let's not let his legacy die. So we've actually rebranded it. It's the H.K. Egerton Equal Protection Initiative. And when they're passed, we want it called the H.K. Egerton Act or the H.K. Egerton Law in the United States and in states.
Yeah. And he was an Army veteran.
Yeah, he sure
and
was.
I don't know, I know back during Veterans Day they had that issue down in Florida. And I don't know if they actually filed a lawsuit.
They were
or if
working
they were in
on
the
it.
process
It
of
was pretty much in the process and going, but of course he never got justice because he passed away. They because he had his Confederate flag and because he was wearing his Confederate uniform, which he always does.
Yeah.
And what you said about the 1950s is absolutely true, but it was also happened in 1929 as well. There's two laws, and they're still in the books to this day, that made Confederate veterans American veterans for the purposes of graves, cemeteries, and pensions.
Yeah.
So they violated his rights. So hopefully we can vindicate him through this initiative.
Yeah. And for some listeners on the screen there, can you see the...
Barely.
Okay. Yeah.
My eyes are a little.
Anyway, for those of you, well, as you can tell there, people that may not be familiar with H.K. Egerton, which a lot of you are, but so he was the Black Confederate. He was a black man from Asheville, North Carolina, mm-hmm. and he knew his history. He knew his Confederate history, and he did everything he could to preserve it and to make sure people understood the truth about the South, the Confederacy,
Absolutely.
And after that.
Oh, he didn't just talk the talk. He literally walked the walk. He in 2002 he walked from Asheville, North Carolina to Austin, Texas, to protest two plaques they took off of the Capitol building in Austin. He walked roughly 1,600 miles. His brother Terry followed him, I think it was like in a semi with a Confederate flag hanging out the back, and he met people. I just did a story about him on social media. He literally walked the walk, and he told it like it was, and we love him, and it has nothing to do with the color of his skin. We just loved who he was and what he stood for, and he was right.
Yeah, he was a good man. I enjoyed. I'm glad I got to have him on. I was sorry I didn't actually get to meet him in person.
I was fortunate enough to meet him that one time at dinner. We'd talked before, but he was also on the Defend Arlington committee, so
right.
we were also colleagues in that regard. But having that dinner with him, and I remember leaving there thinking, I can't wait to sit down and talk with him again, because we only had a little bit of time. But we talked about his mother, and we talked about his walk, and we talked about his NAACP years. That was kind of interesting. So, we miss him a lot. He's a big hole there.
Yeah, he's a good man, good man. So we're getting closer to our country's 250th birthday, and this, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but this is something I'm going to put out there and see what you think about it. Would you agree that the beliefs of the Southern people, soldiers or not, are more in line with the founding generation than those that fought to keep them in the Union?
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement.
And I do too. And I think let's talk about it, because I want people to understand. I mean, we're not just trying to, we're not just trying to agitate people out there.
No.
There's the philosophy of the founding generation. It was strongest in the South. I mean, it just was.
Well, four of our first 5 presidents were Virginians.
Yep.
They were Southerners.
Yep.
The South had a big stake in the United States, and
the view of it was, okay, the states retained their sovereignty except for those things that they delegated to the federal government, and those things were limited.
well, it's interesting that a lot of the Anti-Federalists were Southerners.
Right. But not all of them.
No, not all of them. And one of my favorite is Samuel Adams, but he's not my favorite. My favorite, even though Jefferson was out of the country at the time of the Continental Congress, I kind of still see him as the leader of the Anti-Federalist movement, even though he really wasn't. Yeah. I mean, there were others, James Mason and, George Mason and George Clinton, and one of my relatives, Lee, was another one of the Federalists, Anti-Federalists. Yeah. And their objections were that it would erode state sovereignty. I mean, keep in mind, we just fought a war with England. Yeah. And when King George signed his peace agreement with the United States, it wasn't with the United States of America, it was with 13 separate states.
So when you remember that out there, on the 250th anniversary of on July 4th, there were 13, we didn't create one big country.
No, we were 13 countries.
13, and if you don't believe me, go look it up in the history books and read the document. Mm-hmm. At the end of it, it's clear. But even though it's there and it's in black and white, most people see that as America, a national country, was created on the 4th of July, 1776, but that's just flat out not accurate.
Prior to 1861, it was these United States. After 1865, it became the United States, and that's significant. Yeah. That's exactly where it changed, and I think to the detriment of the country.
Oh, I agree. Mm. Yeah. So what? And I have to watch because I like to ramble on, but you're the guest.
No, that's fine.
So just kind of roll with it and put some things out there and talk about the Anti-Federalist beliefs that you think are important, and how the Confederacy, the people
ties
in the
into
South,
that. Sure,
were more in line with what our founders created.
Oh, and we still are. The people that fought in the Revolution, the farmers, the shopkeepers. I have 7 great-grandfathers who fought for the Continental Army. One died at the Battle of, it was really the Battle of Breed's Hill, but we know it as the Battle of Bunker Hill. The rest of them survived the war, amazingly enough. They were fighting to get rid of the king. They wanted to govern. They wanted self-determination. They wanted to govern themselves, and they believed that had to happen locally. That a bureaucracy thousands of miles away across the ocean had no business in meddling in their lives, and they believed that.
Right.
And they fought for that, and they won. Then comes the Constitution, and we governed under a loose alliance,
the Articles
of Confederation for a while, and it was determined that wasn't working for certain things. And I actually agree with that. We needed to centralize for certain things, like to defend ourselves against foreign invasion, to regulate the interstate commerce, because that was kind of a mess, and everybody had their own money, and their own taxes,
taxing the other states.
Right, so we agree with that. But what happened was, and the reason the Anti-Federalists were so vocal is because they could see the pitfalls, they could see the downfall that was going to happen, and that was centralized power was just going to breed more power, and it was going to diminish the state's sovereignty.
Yep.
So under different pen names like Brutus and the farmer, I forget what he was, but they did a whole series of essays about why this was a bad idea.
Right.
Patrick Henry, the "Give me liberty or give me death" man, he walked out because he saw what was coming. George Mason had written the Declaration of Rights for Virginia,
Yep.
and a significant date, 1776. And so the compromise was that we would add those rights to the Constitution. So you have States.
Yeah, the federal government.
And so, and those are the only enumerated powers.
Yep.
But then you got the Ninth Amendment, which reaffirms that nothing in the Constitution should be construed to take away any of the rights of the people or the states.
Right.
Then you've got the 10th Amendment, which clearly states that only those enumerated powers does the federal government
Yeah, anything
control.
not delegated to the federal government is retained by the states or the people.
Well, and a lot of people misunderstand the supremacy clause
Oh, yeah.
of the Constitution. Yeah, there is a supremacy clause in the Constitution, but it's only about those enumerated powers.
right.
Doesn't mean that they have authority over state if it's not.
That's right.
Now, let's bring that to modern times. The left wants to tell us that it's federal overreach to have ICE in cities. Well, sorry, you're going to lose that one because the court has upheld that is an enumerated right of the federal
and
government.
it's not really just the court, because the court has obviously held up some things that are,
Well,
blatantly
yeah.
unconstitutional. But naturalization,
Yeah,
that was
it's-
something that was delegated to the federal government. And then you have the necessary and proper clause. Well, it makes sense to me that if a power is delegated to the federal government, in this case, the issue of naturalization, well, then they have the right to make a law to enforce the power that was granted to them.
I've had a couple of people on the left come at me and say and ask me about that. So you're always saying the supremacy clause doesn't mean what it says it means. I said, you're right, but in this case it does. In this case, this is the federal government's purview, and
Right.
they're doing what they're supposed to do, and more than that, they're doing what they were elected to do,
Right, absolutely.
and that's important.
Yeah.
And so I got sidetracked there a little bit about modern politics, but what happened then, James Madison authored the Bill of Rights, which thank God he did, even though they're supposed to be God-given rights. We need, and the argument at the time was, if you list them, then that will mean that only these rights apply.
Well, that's why we got the Ninth Amendment. The Ninth Amendment was to cover that, because some people, these guys anticipated
They're pretty
a lot
smart.
of the abuses that we have today. So some people said, well, look, if we, number one of the first arguments was, well, you don't need a Bill of Rights because there's nothing in this Constitution that gives the federal government power to do X, Y, or Z.
Can you imagine if we didn't have it though?
Oh,
We'd be Europe right now.
yeah. But the Ninth Amendment came about because some people thought, well, you know what? Somebody will still try to say that, well, it doesn't say in here that we can't do it. So that's why we got the Ninth. And then the 10th was just to remove all doubt that the federal government only has the power granted in Article 1, Section 8.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what it was for.
I think it's telling that the 11th Amendment was really the same thing, this, on the same lines about the judiciary. You can't be hauled into federal court because of a foreign country or another state. So I think those are important. Those three together are really sandwiched in there is the 10th, but you got to look at the 9th and the 11th Amendment too to understand the intent of the founding fathers and why that was so important. And it was all about state sovereignty.
And so the 11th Amendment, that came about around 1793 and had to do with the case in Georgia. I don't remember of the details.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look
But
at it.
I do know that it came back to that question of state sovereignty.
Absolutely.
And keep in mind now, the founders they give us great, not only that they're very smart and very well versed on the history of governments, and of course British history, which certainly there's a big link there. We got a lot of the ideas were not original. We just felt that the British government was not honoring our constitutional rights as British subjects at the time. So
we know the cry, taxation without representation.
Right. But it's just, we're not taught this. Whatever you've learned, I guarantee you didn't learn it in school.
No, I learned it over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Because a man at a gun show in Nashville made an offhand remark to me. We'd just moved from Montana, and I grew up in the South, so I went to school like everybody else did, but I had some fabric out, and I called it, this is Lincoln era fabric. He said, we prefer Robert E. Lee fabric. And I said, oh, well, Civil War era. He said, no, ma'am, that's the wall between the states. And he said it just like that. And I looked at my husband who's here, and I was like, they take this stuff serious here, don't they? And he had made a couple other comments. I was like, that can't be right. So I go home like I always do because I'm pretty curious, and I start looking into it. And I start researching. I was like, gosh, he really is right. This really did happen. What else did I miss? Yeah. So it's been a 21-year process of learning.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I liked to read about the Civil War, about the battles and all. And then I got older, I'm like, okay, well, wait, so what was the real cause? What was really, what really led up to it, and what was it really all about? And that's where I learned more of the details about it.
Well, and I think that what passes for history today is call it Lincoln's War. But what I call it, the reason I call it that now is because that's what the veterans called it after the war. And there are two different bills, or there's two different laws and that came out of Congress that used that distinction, the war between the states. So I figure if the veterans who actually fought it used that terminology, then that's probably what I should use to describe it. But we get to where we are today, and people don't understand what happened, and you need to know what happened. You need to know what they did. History gets flattened into one thing. Right. Oh, you went to war, you were all traitors, you went to war to fight over slavery, and you lost, we kicked your butt, now get in line, we don't care about you anymore. Not quite.
Or what's going on in Minnesota is the new Confederacy. That's another one of the most idiotic things I've heard.
I wrote a paper recently that told Governor Walz to either get in line or secede and give up all the privileges of being in the United States. But what you're doing now is illegal. You can't do it that way. And see, that's what our Confederate ancestors did. They seceded first, the Deep South. The first 7 states in the Deep South seceded, and then they formed a new government, the Confederacy. That's one level. Lincoln didn't like that, mostly because of the revenue they lost in southern ports. And it wasn't just the revenue they were losing, even though it was
the revenue they were going to lose when you got a new country to your south with its own ports.
Well, with ports that wanted free trade, they wanted to do away with the tariffs. That is the reason that Lincoln did what he did in South Carolina, in Charleston. It's also the reason he called up 75,000 troops to invade and make war on the southern states. When he did that, 4 more, really 6 more states said, no, you can't invade it. We're not going to go along with this. Right. So they seceded and joined the Confederacy. Our state of Tennessee, my ancestor state of Virginia, my other ancestors who were in Missouri, they didn't want any part of it. They didn't want secession. They didn't want war. Right. It was forced on them. And to condemn a person today, for a person today to condemn them for that, they don't know what they're talking about.
No, they don't.
Because that was the reality. You either defend your home, your family, your community, or you submit. And they chose not to submit. Well, their grandfathers and their fathers sure didn't submit to the king. They fought.
Absolutely, especially in Tennessee and Virginia. And imagine the Civil War without Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and to a lesser degree Arkansas. I mean, it's not as much of a player, but just those 3 states, the number of troops and the leadership out of those three states?
Well, the most battles were in Virginia of the war, and the second was Tennessee. And we're full of that history here in Tennessee. My grandson and I, he's 15 years old, his name is Noah, and he's been a reenactor since he was 10.
Oh, wow.
He saw me doing this stuff, and he's kind of got into it. And the first reenactment we went to was Columbia Belmont in Kentucky. Well, him and I have a new book series out.
Cool.
It's called Rebel Boys, and it's for tweens, really about 10 years old to 14-year-old or 15-year-olds. And the very first book is The War Comes to Tennessee, and it's a novel. It's about a boy and his grandmother who live in Henderson, Tennessee, and his father's gone off to the war, and he's there with the grandmother, and without her knowing, he goes to Jackson and joins the Confederacy, and she can't get him out of it because he's already been sworn in, so she follows him. And so the book series follows the different battles around the state, and Noah and I get the information from actually going to the battlefields, to actually being there at reenactment. Cool. So we learn about that, and we learn about what was happening at that time, and then we write about it. It's action-packed. It's for young boys who.
So it's already published. It's already out there?
No, the first book will be out. I think in April is when it comes out.
It'll be on Amazon?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
It's called Rebel Boys. The battle comes to Tennessee. The war comes to Tennessee.
You should put that on Shotwell, too.
Yeah. Might as well.
Well, that's interesting. And that's the thing, too. Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina, their original votes, and I think Arkansas as well, their original votes were against secession. It wasn't until after Sumter, after Lincoln called up for 75,000 troops, that's when they're like, hey, wait, we're not doing this.
And that's why. Why. They didn't want any part of that. They didn't. When you look at figures like Lee and Jackson and Forrest, they didn't want any of this. I mean, they truly gave up their fortunes for whether it were military fortunes or in Forrest's case, what was actual money fortunes,
right,
to defend their people. That they didn't. I think Forrest even said he voted against secession twice, but when it came, he was going to defend his home. So that narrative always gets squished down to slavery. Lincoln was fighting to free the slaves. The Confederates went into slavery, and they lost, and that's it. Right. And that totally negates what actually happened.
Yeah, and people need to understand that, especially since they try to use this in modern times to, make a connection between the South and cities like Minneapolis, people like Waltz, people like them, and these other blue cities, blue states, who are, in fact, they've got communist movements going there, and there is no link between the Confederacy and communism. There's a much stronger link, between the Republican Party of the 1850s and 1860s and communism.
Absolutely.
Than there ever is any kind of link between communism and the Confederacy.
Well, the 48ers, you've heard of the 48ers.
Absolutely.
They were in Lincoln's administration.
And they were generals, a lot of them. They weren't just rank and file. A lot of them were high up.
And one of the highest praises that Karl Marx gave to Lincoln in one of the New York papers, I forget which one it was that he was able to circumvent the Constitution to get this done. Yeah. And he sure did. And that's what changed us, and that's where the communist movement started in the United States. And a lot of people don't realize that. And when I heard Waltz compare himself to being Gettysburg, I was appalled. I was like, I have Union ancestors as well. I had Ken who fought on both sides. And I was like, I am embarrassed for you for both, and insulted for both sides of that war. You would be laughed out of town by our ancestors on both sides of that war, because you're nothing like that. You're basically a bunch of thugs, and it's Marxist tactics 101. That's what they did. Look at.
Yeah. Well, it was Marxist tactics when they started in 2020, tearing down the statues and defacing all the memorials.
It absolutely was. It was a cultural revolution, and that's exactly what the Bolsheviks did in early Russia. It's the first thing I did a piece not long ago called "The First Erasure," and tie in the erasure of Southern culture and Southern symbols and Southern monuments directly to the communist takeover.
Right.
And it's here, whether people want to admit it or not. That's what we're fighting against.
Yeah.
People look at us and say, "Oh, you're just boomers. You're talking about something." We're old enough to know it when we see it, and we see it now.
Well, I remember when I was in school, they still taught us about communism.
Yeah,
They still
it was a
taught
big
us
deal.
about why it was bad, and they taught us about how they took power, and the rights that we have here, and they. I don't think they're teaching that.
No, they don't teach that at all now. And I also remember in being in grade school that one of my teachers was explaining to me that they had to take an oath when they became a teacher, and it was Seminole County, Florida at the time, that they were not communist. You couldn't teach. Of course, if you were, what were you going to do? You just say you weren't, but they had to take an oath that they weren't communist. And that's how big of a deal it was. And my mom and some of my older cousins remember the nuclear bomb drills and hiding getting under the desk and like they do anything, but they did. It was very real. It was very real to them then in a way it's not now.
Yeah. Well, I think I still don't think we should allow communists to teach our kids.
Of course not.
But we are.
They got into the universities. And they've been very successful. They successfully took over the universities and the ideology from the universities.
Well, but it didn't stop there. They've got the schools now for the most part.
Yeah, no, you're right.
For the most part.
You're right.
And of course now they're trying to get their hands on the homeschoolers and the private schoolers and the Christian schools.
And we have to push back. We don't accept that. The people I know don't accept that anymore, and we're not going to accept it. We're going to stand up and say, no, we want what our country was founded on.
Right.
Because this was the promise that all of our ancestors before us stood up for, and we're standing up for it now. We're not going to let this happen.
Right.
And you're going to listen to us because there's enough of us to make you listen.
So are there any specific plans with your organizations for the 250th anniversary?
Not specific. We had asked to join I don't know if you remember the Memorial Day parade that Trump had last year for the military.
Vaguely, yes.
Okay. We had asked to be participants in that through, because some Civil War reenactors were involved in that. And we were told flat out that we were not welcome. We were traitors, and we fought against the United States.
Who told you that?
I think it was people for I'm not sure. It was the people that set it up for the parade, that were setting up the Civil War reenactors for the parades. And I don't know, I don't want to say a specific organization because I'm not really sure that that's who it was, but we were told by two different people that we were definitely not welcome. It was totally woke. It was totally woke reasoning that they gave us. So we set it out. And we don't have specific plans other than to tell our story that we were Americans before 1860. We were Americans from 1861 to 1865, and we're Americans again today. And you can't tell the American story and leave out that middle part. You can't. If you do, you're not going to be America anymore.
Right.
So.
And we talked a little while ago about the whole supremacy clause thing. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the big problems is since the end of the Civil War, everybody believes, and I don't think it really got bad. I mean, it was bad enough at that time because they changed the nature of the republic. It was a voluntary union. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people believe that, not just in the South. There were a lot of people in the North. A lot of people in Lincoln's administration tried to talk him out of instigating the Sumter
Honestly,
situation.
If it weren't for the Southern ports, Lincoln probably would have let him go. It was all about the money.
Right.
It wasn't about saving the Union. It was about saving the revenue for the United States.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, they probably would have completely fallen apart had they gone because of the money issue. I mean, I think something like 80% of the United States revenue came from the South.
Right. And then, but to make it worse, France and England would have just been trading primarily with the South.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was all a financial thing. It had nothing to do with principles. It had nothing to do with slavery. Well, slavery is a side issue. Even Sherman said it was the pretext for the war, and it wasn't the reason.
Right.
Slavery existed at the time, and we're not
Right.
denying that it existed. And it was a horrible, inhumane institution that was practiced for over 4,000 years by everyone on the planet.
Yeah.
So it didn't begin or end in the American South. But we recognize it for what it was, only it wasn't the driving factor of what happened during the war between the states and during secession.
You could not have raised enough people from the North to go and fight to free the slaves. If that was the main pretext, you could not have raised
They would
enough
have revolted.
people.
They would have revolted.
And a lot of people were really disgusted after the Emancipation Proclamation. They're
yeah.
like, I didn't sign up for this.
No, so then you've got the draft riots in New York. Those are the bloodiest drafts or bloodiest revolts that have happened in the United States since the founding.
Yeah, and even Grant and Sherman were like, yeah, we're not fighting for this.
People don't realize that was not that was a war tactic.
Right.
What he didn't
was a
care
wartime measure. He even
anything
admitted
about
that.
the slaves because he only emancipated people that he had no control
That's
over.
right.
And if he were serious about it, that Emancipation Proclamation went into effect in January of 1863. West Virginia was illegally and unconstitutionally annexed in June.
That's my home state, but you're
mine
right.
too. I'm from West Virginia. Was born in Parkersburg.
Okay, that's right. I forgot. Yeah,
In 1863 as the last slave state for the Union.
Yeah.
They admitted a state to the Union as a slave state in the middle of his war.
Yeah.
So tell me again how it was
But
all
they
about
did,
slavery.
They did tell them they would have to change their constitution, but they still let
Well,
them in.
yeah, but that's even a misnomer because what happened was if you were 10 years old or older at the time that West Virginia became a state, you were a slave for life, which meant wasn't gradual emancipation. If it could last 50 or 60 more years, how do you figure that that's benefiting the
Right.
black person? So
Yeah,
it's a farce. It was a farce.
absolutely. Well, I think this year it's going to be important for those of us who understand, like say, the Anti-Federalist core principles that, for the most part, our country followed. Certainly for the first 50 years, and it kind of, for the most part, up till the Civil War, but it kind of waned. You had from about the 1830s on, you had these nationalists. Now, to be fair, you had nationalists early on, but they didn't win. They didn't win at the Constitutional Convention. They didn't win at the state ratification debates for our Constitution. But you had people like Marshall, Hamilton, and others that they did want more of a national government, but they didn't win the argument at the time. And later on, some of it was through the courts. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another problem. We have put the courts on such a pedestal.
True.
And that's hurt our country. That has hurt our country.
Well, yeah, every branch of the government has the same authority to not follow unconstitutional laws.
Right.
The Supreme Court is not above the president in deciding if a law is constitutional or not and whether or not it should be enforced.
Yeah.
There are three branches of government, and there's nowhere does it say the Supreme Court is the final
Right.
arbitrator
No.
of everything in the land. That was the beauty of the design of the Constitution.
And it still can't rule on something that's not in Article 1, Section 8.
No.
It's still limits, because that's the limits on the federal government.
Yeah, but there's been huge overreach over the years.
Absolutely. We've got the core principles. If he's going to pop them up here if you wanted to. I don't know.
Yeah, get me to read them.
Okay. Well, I don't have my Hubbles on, but you probably know most of them by heart. Anything you want to hit on?
Oh, that's better. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see. I still can't read them. I'm sorry, but it's basically what we've been talking about. It's limited government, state sovereignty. We were started out a country of 13 states, and each which read country. We were a country of 13 countries,
Right.
and we had our own governments, our own culture, our own way of doing things, and we wanted to maintain that. And the Anti-Federalists said, yeah, we understand that we need certain things, to happen in order to protect our borders and to, make sure England and France don't come over and
Take us back.
Yeah, start so we don't have to use Minutemen again. And yeah, this is a problem with our trade right now between the states because they're getting that all screwed up. But they did not want to lose that sovereignty.
Right.
And they tried to put safeguards in to make sure we didn't. To this day, we are supposed to be sovereign states.
Absolutely.
To this day, it's just been eroded.
Yeah. And, they were diverse at that time with the 13. I mean, New England and the South were a lot different even then. Now we've got 50 states. And, all this time has passed, all this, we got millions of people. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even talking about the illegals, okay, or the refugees. There's no way, because it's set up right now to this whole idea of winner take all. So
It's got to change.
Yeah, there's no way we stay together if we don't get back to the Anti-Federalist core that our country was founded
Well,
on.
there is a way that we stay together, and that's by force.
Well, yeah, correct, but
Because
that's not the preferred method.
No, and we have the power, and fortunately, we have a constitution that gives us rights that our cousins in Europe don't have.
Right.
And they're taking a beating for it now. I just talked to a friend from South Africa right now. It's just, when Reagan said we're the last hope of on Earth, he's right. If it fails here, it's gone, because it's already gone everywhere else. Yeah. And there are enough of us. We just have to tell the truth and teach and tell people who we are and where we came from and why this is important.
Right.
And not let the loud voices win.
So you have your website and you have a Facebook page. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say about those or any other outlets?
It's Southern Independence Association.org, not .com, .org is our website address. And then we have the Southern Independence Association group on social media, and we have a page on Facebook, a Southern Independence Association page. And I do a lot of things just on my own timelines. I write a lot of pieces, essays.
So you're going to have any events anytime soon?
Yes. Well, we do a lot of speaking engagements at SCV camps. So we have several of those coming up. But we have the parade in Erin, Tennessee, which is coming up, I think, March 17th.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to be there?
Yeah, we're going to have a float in there, and have our members part of that. And we'll also have a vendor booth there at the celebration.
Yeah,
so
that's just the next town over.
Yeah, we're excited about it. We believe that, we're a national organization, but everything starts at the local level.
Right.
And we actually try to get people elected to office, and whether it's dog catcher all the way up to the governor, we're very involved in that part. We're a 501c4. Unlike the SCB, which is a 501c3, we are involved in politics.
So with the 501c4, you can do education, you can donate to PACs, correct?
Yes, and we can support political figures, and we can talk about politics in a way that the 501c can't.
Okay.
We've always been that way. We started out that way. So we're very much we believe that the old saying, all government is local. And It starts local, and it starts in your own backyard. And you take care of your backyard, and you spread out from there.
Who have you backed?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot. I don't know. They were
mostly local county.
And local runs, in different states. We haven't.
Do you do anything at the state level?
We haven't yet, but we're about to.
Okay, because we got a governor's race here.
I know. Don't think I've forgotten that. I haven't, because that's very important.
Okay, and now. Okay, well that's good. I mean, I didn't realize you were a 501c4.
Yes.
And that's good. There's a lot of things, good things that a 501c4 can do that a 3 is.
Yeah, and you can't change anything unless you have that classification. I mean, you can't change it as a 501(c)(3). You can be a heritage organization, and this is important. We're not trying to relitigate the war between the states.
Right.
We all know
you're still fighting for the principles.
We're trying
Anti-Federalist principles.
We're trying to make life better in 2026 for our people.
Right.
And based on all those principles of all those ancestors that came before us, because they were right. They were right. And we want that for our children, our children's children, and everybody that comes after us. So This isn't about secession. We do not advocate secession, although we do believe that secession is a right inherent in a voluntary union, and it's always a possibility for anybody at any time. If you're not happy, just like I told Minnesota a couple weeks ago, if you're not happy, secede. Go your own way.
It's funny you should say that, because a lot of times people they'll talk about secession and they'll say, well, the war ended it, but then the Supreme Court even made it clear because in Texas v. White. Well, Texas v. White didn't do that. But it's funny because in Texas v. White, they said that a state couldn't unilaterally secede, but that they considered the possibility that Congress could basically
It was very convoluted.
Yeah, it was convoluted. That Congress could basically kick a state out, which I don't know where they get that from, but I'm thinking if that is in any way, shape, or form constitutional, we should probably make a motion to get rid of Minnesota. We could maybe trade Canada for Alberta. We'll give them Minnesota, we'll take Alberta.
Alberta's a pretty cool province. Well, it's telling also that the decision came down to Salmon P. Chase and Texas v. White. The same person who said we will not try Confederates for treason because it was not unconstitutional. So I think he was trying to do a little bit of lawmaking there and not just on the judiciary at the time. We're that's important. All history is important.
Right. But the principles they still count.
The principles absolutely count, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we don't want to lose that for our families, for our children, for our grandchildren, and we see it eroding quickly, and not just in the United States. You can't really understand what's happening here unless you take a look at what's happening around the world, particularly in Western Europe, in the UK, and Ireland, and Italy. They are losing any rights they ever thought they had, and it's sad because the Magna Carta came out of England. They have no rights. They can go to jail for what they post on social media. They can go to jail. It's not. The beauty of the First Amendment, and I think this case in Minnesota is really important because it says, does the people's right to protest, or even Lemon, does his right as a journalist supersede the right of the worshipers in their church? It's a pure example of your rights end at my nose kind of situation. Right. So in England today, you can get arrested not because you caused actual harm or because you violated any right. You can be arrested today because it hurt somebody's feelings. Literally. I've got friends in the UK, I've got friends in Scotland, and they tell me the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, it is a mess. It's a mess here. It's even worse there. And we have to do something about it. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I'm hopeful. I even though we've talked about, kind of all the things that have gone wrong over the last couple of centuries, I'm really hopeful. I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I think there are enough people who think like we do, and not just in the South. They're regular, everyday Americans that think exactly the way we do, and are willing to stand up for it.
One thing I meant to ask you, do you know how many members you have in Tennessee?
Oh, gosh, broke down in Tennessee. I don't have that number offhand. I don't have that number offhand. Okay. Several thousand.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for being with us.
Thank
Definitely
you for
like to have you back, and good luck in all you're doing, and appreciate that you're doing it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And I might actually see you at the Houston County event.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and my husband who's over there, he's going to drive the float for us. So it's his trailer. He's bring it there, and we decorate, and he'll drive it.
So what's it going to be? What's the float theme going to be?
The Confederacy. What else?
Okay. Big rebel flag?
Oh, yeah, probably more than one. Probably all of them. The three nationals and the.
Oh, now you're going to confuse some people.
Well, maybe it's time that people get a little confused, so they'll look it up.
Yeah.
Why we had three different national flags and a battle flag, and of course it'll be the flag of the Army of Tennessee, not the Army of Northern Virginia. So.
Right. Well, hey, thanks again. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you coming in the studio.
No, it's my pleasure.
Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for tuning into the show tonight, and I want to remind you that we still need you to subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 by the end of February. Doesn't cost you anything. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Please help us to reach that goal. And we also like to hear from you on what some of the topics of interest that you have. If you got something or a specific guest that you would like us to have on, send us an email and let us know. Help us to serve you better. Help us to get the information out there and the ideas or the issues that we may not really be tracking. Thanks again to David Baldwin for his generous donation and support. We really appreciate it. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, teeninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. A few announcements here. Monty Fritz will speak to the Cheatham County GOP tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at the Queued Up 615 Restaurant, 6381 on 41A in Pleasant View. And he will also be at the Franklin County GOP Chili Cook-Off this Thursday, February 5th at 5:30. The meeting will be held at the Franklin County Annex Building, 839 Dinah Shore Boulevard, Suite 1 in Winchester, Tennessee. Our guest next week for the 7 p.m. show will be John Avery Emerson from right here in Tennessee. He joins us to discuss a project he is working on that involves the murder of MLK and an EO from President Trump that the National Archives appears to be ignoring concerning evidence. Should be an interesting case. Then at 8:30, Joshua Doggerel, he's an Alabama police officer. He's going to join us to tell his story of being targeted and doxxed by the Southern Poverty Law Center for speaking at a Southern Heritage event. Please take the time to check out the other shows brought to you by West Tennessee TV by going to westtntv.com or myparistv.com. You can find links to the Mike Weatherford Show, the Sportscast with Jeremy Bucklow. Tomorrow night, Mike welcomes singer-songwriter Rick Revel for the premiere and debut of his newest hit song and music video, Singing River, shot all around West Tennessee as well as Muscle Shoals. Don't miss that one. And Sunday, February 8th at a special time of 4:30, on Sportscast, Jeremy and Kenna break down the Super Bowl matchup before all the festivities begin at 5 p.m. They'll be taking viewers' calls on who you think is going to win. That's next Sunday, special time, 4:30 Central. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.